If you know any academics, you know that we tend to be pretty confident in our expertise. So it may surprise you to know that one of the most powerful ideas in philosophy is skepticism, the view that we human beings can't really know anything at all, and that those who defend this view actually think that acknowledging this fact can be a very good thing. You might think that the point of learning is to acquire knowledge, and in many cases, this assumption is basically right. You wouldn't sign up for a math class unless you were confident that you'd end up learning how to solve some math problems. But one of the primary tasks of philosophy is to ask what we don't know, and to figure out how what we don't know can shape our lives. Think about it like this. Say you arrived in a new country and were handed a strange-looking map. Of course, it's important to know what information that map contains. But perhaps equally important is the question of what that map leaves out. If the map doesn't represent obstacles or serious dangers, this is something that it will be very important for you to know before you start using it to navigate. Human knowledge is like the map in question, and we use it all the time to navigate the world. The point here is that it's incredibly important to know the limits of human knowledge, what might be left out. It's important to know, in other words, what we don't and can't know. Let's make this all more concrete. Socrates is often referred to as the father of Western philosophy. He lived most of his life in the 5th century BC and was the teacher of Plato, who taught Aristotle. Now, even though he's one of the most important philosophers in history, Socrates is famous for claiming that the only thing he knew was that he knew nothing, and that this made him the wisest man in all of Athens. In his free time, Socrates used to go around asking the most powerful and influential people he could find questions about their professions. He would ask lawyers about the law, the religious about piety, and poets about beauty. Through this process of questioning, Socrates would illuminate, in sometimes humiliating ways, how little they actually understood about the world. Needless to say, he wasn't a very popular guy. Now, Socrates wasn't just doing this to cause trouble. He was, if we're going to take him at his word, motivated by a deep desire to know the truth. Socrates cared about getting at truth. It just turns out, on his view, that this isn't as easy as it sounds. While we might not want to follow Socrates all the way to his skeptical conclusion, it's worth pausing for a moment to see why Socrates thought that this kind of skepticism, which is now referred to as Socratic ignorance, was itself a virtue. Imagine walking onto a used car lot and saying to the first salesman that you see, "I know you work on commission and that you have all the reason in the world to deceive me about the value of these cars, but I'm going to trust you blindly." That probably wouldn't be a winning strategy. There are at least some domains in which we really ought to be more skeptical. There are domains in which skepticism, or a recognition of our probable ignorance, is, in a deep sense, the most virtuous state of mind to be in. One practical question that you can ask yourself then is whether there are views that you hold with more conviction than is warranted, whether you ought, in the end, to be a bit more skeptical than you actually are. Philosophical skeptics, then, are like pioneers out there on the frontier, sketching out the map of the world and letting us know all of the territories that have yet to be explored. In the end, you might think that philosophical skepticism is not in fundamental opposition to our acquiring or knowing the truth. Really, it's a virtuous attempt to make sure that when we form our beliefs, we're giving ourselves the best possible shot at getting the truth.